I'll just be really honest with you, and maybe you're like me and you can identify with this as well. But there have been long moments of my life where all I've wanted to be is more interesting. Like my hope is that when I come into contact with people, they find me to be interesting. Because nobody ever leaves an interaction or a conversation and thinks to themselves, I hope they thought I was really boring. Like I want to be interesting to people. What's really interesting though is they did a social experiment a few years ago. They put 50 people that didn't know each other into a room. They gave them no instructions, no prompting, except one person. They pulled off to the side and they gave them one set of instructions. And all they told them to do was go in, don't reveal anything about yourself, just ask questions. So 50 people in this room, no instructions, don't know each other, just milling around for an hour. And the only person that had instructions was just supposed to ask questions, don't reveal anything about yourself. After the hour, they pull everybody out and they polled every single person in that room and they asked them the same question. Who was the most interesting person that you talked to? And in a room full of 50 random people, there's probably some pretty qualified, educated, accomplished people in that room. But you know who unanimously all 50 people said was the most interesting person they ran into? It was the person who could only ask questions. It was the person who was literally told, don't reveal anything about yourself, just ask about other people. Isn't it so interesting that the most interesting person is often the most interested person? And as a matter of fact, we see this in scripture with Jesus. John chapter 4, he has this interaction with a woman that he's not supposed to interact with. John chapter 4, verse 7 says this, when a Samaritan woman came to draw water, Jesus said to her, will you give me a drink? His disciples had gone into the town to buy food. The Samaritan woman said to him, you are a Jew, and I'm a Samaritan woman. How can you ask me for a drink? For Jews do not associate with Samaritans. Verse 10, Jesus answered her, if you knew the gift of God and who it is that asks you for a drink, you would have asked him and he would have given you living water. Jesus in this moment is not supposed to interact with this woman because for a Jew to interact with a Samaritan would have made Jesus unclean. So by law, he was not supposed to interact with this woman. And he asks her if she could get him a drink of water. Now, this wasn't an accident. This wasn't a mistake. Jesus knew exactly what he was doing. What was he doing? He was setting up this context so that he could be interested in this woman. And as you read through the rest of this encounter, they have this incredible conversation and her entire life changes. Why? Because Jesus was interested in who she was. And in turn, she found the questioner interesting. Sometimes the most effective thing that you can do for your faith, for the gospel, for your family, your friends, your coworkers, sometimes the most effective thing that you can do is not be more interesting, but be more interested. And I think if we're really honest in today's culture, we as a church have lost the ability to be interested in other people. But that's what actually opens the door to life change. So I want to encourage you today, be like Jesus. Don't try to be interesting, just be interested.